Thank you for your patience. I'd like to start by thanking Heritage Ministries, the Joseph P. Dwyer Veterans Peer-to-Peer Program, and the Blue Star Mothers for bringing us all together today. My name is Kristen Mcmahon. I am the new president of the Robert H. Jackson Center, and I'm so thrilled to see all of you. Some of my earliest memories are of sitting on the couch behind my father, watching him write his weekly letter to his parents. He used one of those tablets with the super thin sheets of paper and the lined paper that you'd put underneath. And his handwriting was so angular and distinctive. And he would fill a few sheets every Sunday evening with the goings-on of his world and our family. I remember being fascinated by his handwriting because it was so different from my mother's beautiful but loopier script. And of course, I was trying to see how often my name showed up in the letter. My own relationship with writing started early, at birth, in fact. My father was stationed overseas, and my mother had moved in with her parents since she was pregnant with me, her first and favorite child. My father was notified of my birth through a game of telephone that included the Red Cross in the chain. And a communique was sent back and is preserved in my baby book. My father was glad that mother and baby were doing well, but he could not call due to his remote location. Growing up in the pre-email era, I had numerous elementary school pen pals. I sent postcards and letters from vacations and shared many teenage angst-ridden letters with my friends. Personally, I am terrible at sending cards on the occasions that merit it: birthdays, anniversaries. A heartfelt apology to all of my friends and family for that, but it's probably never going to change. And this may just be my opinion, but I think I'm excellent at the out of the blue, I was just thinking about you kind of writing. The first letter we're going to read today is from Justice Jackson, so let me set the scene for you. It is to his daughter, Mary Jackson Loftus, in the spring of 1946, shortly after she's given birth to her first son. Justice Jackson has been abroad more or less since May of 1945, first to establish the international military tribunals at Nuremberg, then through the trial preparation, and then during the course of the trial itself. He had the functional role of a general in his role as the chief U.S. prosecutor. And I just want to give you the context for some of the names that you'll hear in the letter. The first two, who you probably need less context for, are Hermann Goering and Hjalmar Schacht, both of whom were part of the 22 defendants in the first IMT. Hermann Goering, of course, was the Reichsmarshal, which gave him seniority over all officers in Germany's armed forces. And Hjalmar Schacht served as the president of the Reichsbank until 1939, and then as a minister without portfolio until January of 1943. You'll also hear the name of Tom, Mary's husband; Bill, Justice Jackson's son, who was assisting him during the trials; Elsie is Elsie Douglas, Justice Jackson's personal assistant; Moritz is Moritz Fuchs, who served as Justice Jackson's personal bodyguard. The Biddles are Catherine and Francis Biddle. Francis Biddle became the Attorney General of the United States when Justice Jackson was elevated to the court. And he also served as the primary American judge during the Nuremberg trials. And the Wexlers are Doris and Herbert Wexler. Herbert Wexler served as the Assistant Attorney General for the War Division under Attorney General Biddle, and he worked in Germany as the principal technical advisor to the American judges. My dear Mary, so it is all over now, and my little Mary is a mama. I can't quite imagine it. You are supposed to be the baby of the family, and now you slide into a new position and shove me back a whole generation into the grandpa class. Well, that's life. I am getting tired of calling him it. Can't you settle on a name? When there are only two sexes possible, I would have thought alternative names would have been settled and plastered onto it immediately on its arrival. At present, the problem is X equals. There's a long list of names with their original meanings in the back of the dictionary, if you are short of suggestions. But for God's sake, make it simple and don't hang something on him that would be laughed at all of his life, like Reginald or Francis. Make it masculine and short, and have a grateful son. It does not look probable that I will see you or him until late in the summer. There are many delays, some of them entirely avoidable if the tribunal stood up and limited the trial as it should do. But the defendants are being given far more privileges than any citizen of the United States on trial would have. I have been away from the court several days with a bad cold, but it is all right again now. I overdid and got too tired. We worked all day and night after night getting ready to cross-examine Goering, and paid for it this way. But now I am letting some of the other boys have their chances at others of the defendants while I take it easy. I will take on Schacht later, probably, as he is one of the tough ones, but not so bad as Goering, I'm sure. It is too bad that Tom could not have been with you and will not be able to see his son for so long. But I still say the Jacksons have no right to complain. After all, he is alive and safe and will come back before long, all in one piece. The more I see of it all, the less I can find fault with our lot or your lot or Bill's lot, however annoying it may be in the moment. I have a letter from Tom that has been unanswered on my desk for months, but I just don't get time to do anything. I envy you the spring weather that must be there. Perhaps now you will ride a little and give Rini some exercise. Here, the Bavarian spring is slow. Crocuses we have had for weeks, and we have some 300 heads of lettuce set out and radishes up. Labor is so plentiful here that they do everything by hand. Yesterday, Elsie figured up 12 people regularly at work and feed here. Cooks, cook's helpers, dishwasher, gardeners, furnace man, handyman, housewoman, Moritz, etc. Then we had 5 prisoners of war during special cleanup jobs, winter garbage, etc. Then, of course, there are the guards, now in 2 shifts, 2 hours on, 10 hours off. It's like a hotel. Wish I could send you some of our surplus help. Bill had a rotten trip coming back, was fogged in nearly a week in London after being fogged out so he could not land in Paris, then had a miserable trip on here. Travel conditions are terrible over here, and living too, except under the wing of the Army. Food riots are quite probable as the supply gets exhausted. Last week, there was an incident of robbery at a nearby house, and the lieutenant in charge of our guard has insisted that we be more careful to close our window drapes, etc., so we will not be visible at night. I can't blame some of the Germans for being pretty sore at some of the things we do, however. There is a rumor that the Biddleses and Wexler's wives will arrive this week. It has created quite a stir and a lot of resentment, and I think it's a shame. Here are boys who have been over here for several years, in combat, who took these places and now have to stay and guard and serve us. They are told, no room to ship wives. Here come civilians, here but a few months, living in the best there is, using best cars, and they get theirs over. The resentment is so strong that a bunch of GIs the other night ganged up and would not let some of our civilians get into their car at the Grand Hotel. Finally, General Watson had to be sent for and quell the young mutiny. Really, the behavior of the Biddle is beyond my understanding. God, I love plain people. Well, no use cussing about my trouble. You've got plenty of your own, and it can't be long now until I get there and blow off by the hour. But anyway, it's a great experience for those that survive it. I have thought of you all a lot and will continue to do so, I know you will have what you need, that you will be master of yours and the little ones' frivolities. And I shall look forward to seeing you all as soon as possible. Love, Daddy. P.S. The same person as Granddaddy, also.
January 9th, 1862. Dear friends, I now set down to do a little more writing to you. I send another letter with this to Silas by the same mail. I am about the same old sixpence. I have but little news to write, but will do as well as I can. The last Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, heavy firing was heard in the direction of Manassas, both of cannon and musketry. Yesterday, Centerville was reported to have been taken, also Manassas Junction. The former part is generally credited to this report, although we haven't full particulars. You will see the report in the papers ere you receive. The occurrence of this fight is no small matter. I heard that we lost some 2,000 men, but won the cause and took possession of that village, driving the rebels from thence and taking the rebel batteries at that front, which were very formidable indeed. One more victory for us, and a good one for us too. I have not got a letter from you in quite a spell, but look for one from you tonight. I hope that R.E. will do something soon for the Colonel and for me. I can write no news. I will close until tomorrow, so goodbye. This is from Cyrus. I wrote again the next day. January 10th, 1862. I take up my pen this morning to write a few more lines. My friend Bauk is about the same as I am. The same I am in hopes he will not have the fever. I don't think he will if he takes good care. Please go and see Silas Swift's letter that I sent, and let him see this one. I am poor old Jack, yet I will be thankful to hear from you soon. I have got no letter for a good while from you. I'll look tonight for something from you. I have seen no gift sacks or blankets for Bauk. Never will Bauk and I see them, I think. I feel as though I were sick of life almost. Today I can write no news. I have got out of stamps, nothing to get them with. None here to get. Payday will come soon, I guess next week. Dr. Irvin has gone home to Dunkirk. I am here, sick, and must stay while these big men go on home and all. Captain Willard is coming home after payday. Wish I could come with him. I will close this scribble. This is from Cyrus Adams.
A letter from Charles Sandburg, World War I, written to his mother. Dear Mother, I am writing these few lines that in case I do not return, you may know how I feel about the war. Mama, we are about to enter into the first drive that the United States has made in the war, and I am sure it will be a great success. In fact, I know it will. There are some of us that will not live through it. But Mama, the reason I am writing you these few lines is to let you know that I am willing to give my life gladly, and I think very little of the man who would not. For me to fall on the field of honor, I know would hurt you, but not like it would if you knew I was not giving my life freely for my country, and that I am leading a better life, a life that when the Lord calls me, I am ready to go. Mother, we may not meet on earth again, but someday we will meet, and there will be no sorrows there. And if I go, Mother, in my last few minutes on earth, my thoughts will be of the dear little mother who has fought the battles of life for the last 14 years, long years, to raise me to where I am now. I have gone through many hardships since I have been over here that it did not look like I could go through, but I went through all okay, and I am glad I have. I have always tried to do my duty and be as cheerful as I could. It does not matter what hardships I have gone through. I could not compare them with yours or what you have suffered for me. But if I had lived to come back and show the world that I could be somebody, and most of all to show my mother how much I love her. With love to Mother, I remain your son. God keep and bless you until we meet again.
I'll read a letter from Forrest Champ to his wife. Wednesday, October 7th, 1945, 7:20 p.m. My darling wife, it is cold today, and darling, it made me so happy when I read the note J.G. Lockwood put in your letter. I'm so nervous that I can't write like I should. Isn't it wonderful that we have a little son? Now I know you are so happy, just as I am. I got 3 letters from you and 1 from Adla. She was wonderful to write to me while she was in the hospital with you. If I could only have been there too, honey, I would have been there right by your side every minute of the time that they would have let me. But now it's all over, and you will soon be going back to the apartment with little Douglas. Thank you, my darling, with all my heart, for being my wonderful wife. I love you so very much, and my life's job will be making you and our son happy. I guess there won't be too much sleep for me tonight. I want to just think about you. Can hardly wait to get a picture of you and our little champ. Has he got blonde hair like you, darling? And your blue eyes? You don't mind if we have a son first, do you? Sweetheart, the next one will be a little girl, and Douglas can take care of his little sister when they go to school. I remember when I used to look after my 2 younger sisters when I went to school. I thought I was a pretty important fellow doing all that. I can hardly wait to get your first letter when you will be well enough to write and tell me about everything. It's been raining here all day, but we've worked on the hospital just the same. It's a job that has to be done, rain or shine. It's still raining hard. If it keeps up all night like this now, I don't know how we'll be able to get out to the job, let alone work. I told my bunkmate about being a father, so he's going to write his wife right away and tell her the news. I think he said his son was born on the 25th also, and one of our officers got a letter today that he had a son, so it looks like the Army is doing okay in the way of having sons born. The tent next to me has a radio show this week, so it's almost the same as having them over here. Some of the fellows are going to stay up and listen to the World Series. It starts at 3 a.m. That's too long for me to stay up, so I guess I'll wait until tomorrow to get the results of the game. The rain has stopped for the time at least, so if it don't rain all night, I guess I'll work as usual. How large does our son look? I have never seen an infant so young. They must be quite small, only weighing that much. But it will be fun watching him grow, honey, won't it? I must write Adla and thank her for writing to me the good news. I'm so glad that everything is okay, honey. Take good care of yourself and tell our son hello from me, won't you, dearest? And now I will say goodnight to you, my darling, and our little baby. I love you both very much. Your loving husband forever, Forrest Champ. And we're fortunate today to have baby Doug on the front row here. Doug, do you mind standing briefly if you can? Thank you.
This letter was written on May 9th, 1953. Dearest darling Marianne, just a few lines from your one and only to let you know I am well and pray you are the same. Tonight I am CQ of the company, Corporal's Pull CQ, which is taking care of the company's telephone all night from 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning. Every 2 hours I have to make a bed check of the company to make sure everyone is in bed and not out gallivanting somewhere. If I find someone is not in bed by the 10:30 deadline, I'm supposed to get his name and report it to the company commander. Although it's part of the job, I wouldn't do it, so I hate to get anyone in trouble. I can't stand a squealer myself, and I hate to be one. Tonight is Saturday night, and as usual, it's just another night in the week. Tomorrow there will be a Catholic service, and I will be sure to attend. Believe me, when I go to church, it relaxes me, makes me feel new again. Over here, it's all faith. Faith in your job, your friends, and most important, yourself. Without faith, there's nothing to strive for, to keep going. When I feel myself getting homesick and blue, I keep telling myself, well, it won't be long now that you'll be stepping off of that boat and back in the good old USA. Do you see what I mean by keeping faith? Life is a very funny thing. It seems you're always looking for something, some goal in life, something to strive for. A man without a goal in life is like a man without a country, nothing to look forward to or try, ambition to reach. I guess in the 7 months I have been away from home, I have set a goal to reach. A wife named Marianne, a house, a car, a family, a steady income. That is the goal. I hope to attain someday. Do you feel my goal is justified and sincere? I have no idea how long we will stay here in reserve. Maybe a month or less. I have no idea. But as always before, I will tell you when I finally know myself. I believe I mentioned in the previous letter about the Jamestown Sun. It seems your subscription is finished as of April 2nd. Would you look into it, as I would like to read about the baseball results? Are they making good progress on the church school building? I bet they have quite a bit done, and by now, haven't they? Today I got a letter from my brother dated April 16th. In the letter he writes that my mother got married April 21st. It's obvious he didn't know about the postponement. He probably knows by now all about it. On account of his pending discharge, I bet he's one happy fella. He congratulated me on my recent promotion to corporal, and he also sent me a picture of himself, which he developed. So now we have a man who can develop pictures in the family. Isn't that great? Just think of all the money we can save. Well, darling, I will close for now, sending all my love to you. Give my best to everyone, Sam and Ann and all the rest. I miss everyone. My best goes to them too. I will write again tomorrow. Love, your future husband, Peter.
Dear Robin, it's great to be home. Now I'm taking this opportunity to extend our sincere thanks to everyone for the wonderful, heartwarming welcome we received, and for the great concern shown during our years of separation. I was shot down on 2 December 1966, about 85 miles northwest of Hanoi. My wife Judy was given little hope that I had survived the direct hit from an SA-2 missile, yet she kept faith and never gave up the hope of our eventual reunion. I was listed as missing in action until August of 1969, when she was officially notified that I was alive and a POW. I lived in 5 different prison camps and was fortunate to enjoy good health throughout the internment. The news media has covered our treatment adequately, so I won't comment on that, except to say that I received the first of 5 letters from my wife 4 years after I was shot down. Our long-awaited reunion came on 7 March 1973 at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. Following military debriefings and medical checks, we took a second honeymoon to San Francisco and Las Vegas. It was a fabulous trip, one we'll never forget. At present, we are relaxing at our home in Tampa and planning some family visits and vacation trips this summer. I have returned in high spirits, determined to pursue my military career. I will return to active duty in August to attend the Armed Services Staff College, followed by a jet recurrency program and an assignment in fighter operations. Again, I want to express my gratitude for the patriotism and support people like yourselves have shown. It is this expression which makes me feel it was all worthwhile and reinforces my conviction to continue to serve our great country. Sincerely, Kenneth W. Cordier, Major, United States Air Force.
Okay, well now you're going to see how letters have changed over the years. I'm going to read 3 different ones that I received from my son when he was in Ramadi, 2006. He left on November 2nd, and he arrived in Qatar. And the first email, because that's what he did. He emailed. Hey, y'all. How is everything? I'm good. It's Monday morning, about 0600 here. We're leaving here today for Iraq, so the vacation is over. A lot of Air Force get deployed here in Qatar for 4 months. This place is like a resort. I was relaxing by the pool yesterday and actually got sunburned. Oh well. I think I'll be roughing it for the next 6 months, though. I don't know how often I'll have access to the internet or a phone, but I'll do what I can when I can. I'll try to get a new phone over here so I can use my cell phone every now and then instead of fighting the lines. But anyway, I've got to go, and I'll call as soon as possible. Everything is fine, Mom. Bye. That was November 5th, 2006. This one's November 27th, after I had sent him a very long email. He said, what's going on? Same stuff over here. Hoping to get our gear soon. I've complained enough. I've got so much mail in the past week, and so did Jason. We have so much food and bathroom stuff, it's silly, but it's always good to get. We both have our stockings hanging over the wall and are wondering what could be in the egg-shaped present. I've received mail from Herb Elmore, the Rogers, the Goggers, Zion Bible Study, Katie Nelson, Cables, a couple of aunts, and a ton of other people. I think I've gotten more birthday cards this year than I got when I was home ever. I lost my place, I'm sorry. Everybody has been great, especially Zion, but everything is good, and I'm going to try to get some letters in the mail within the next couple of days. Don't worry if you can't write. Email makes more sense anyway. Love you guys, and the trip home this summer sounds great. December 27th, 2006. Hey guys, I got the package you sent last week. I just wanted you to know that all is good. Wanted you to thank you for all the good stuff and the time you spent. You can never have too much candy, magazines, and cigars when you're over here. Anything helps pass the time and is always appreciated. I am out near Ramadi and am one of 2 Air Force guys at my camp. I live in an old ag college that's run down. You can tell that it has been a home for soldiers and Marines for the last 3 years. We do all right, though. My job is to help provide close air support to the Army. We are working with F-18s, AV-8 Harriers, which are Navy and Marine jets. I have been here since November and will get home sometime in May. Looks like I will get to avoid the heat this time. However, the rainy season is here, so it's muddy everywhere. Well, thanks again, and I appreciate all you do for me. Love, Matt.
Our featured presenter today is Clay Brizendine. Clay holds a number of roles in the health and wellness space as founder and director of Total Health Organization, former executive director and current board member of the nonprofit Go Vibrant, and as a professional and personal trainer. His book, Shoebox Letters, Daughters to Dads, has been sold around the world with acclaim from the likes of Chicken Soup for the Soul's Mark Victor Hansen. Clay has spent more than 17 years in the sales and marketing world as well, most notably at Procter & Gamble and Catalina Marketing in various roles. Originally from Louisville, Kentucky area and a graduate of Purdue University, he currently resides in Cincinnati with his wife and 3 daughters, 2 of whom are with us today. Clay.
Okay, we're on, and I have to stay away from those speakers, so I will stay in the middle. I took a couple of notes real quick on some of the stuff that we heard this morning. We good? You good? Yeah, okay. So a couple of notes of the things that I heard, because clearly I had no idea what was going to be read beforehand. So a couple of things. One, words really matter. You listen to some of the, I don't want to call it like 1940s, 1950s, 1960s language, but if I addressed my wife today as dearest darling, she'd tilt her head a little bit and go, what? Really? Like, what's going on? We've got some great readers and voices up here, so that was amazing. You guys did a fantastic job. Excuse me. Events matter as much as the love notes matter. You could hear in some of those letters, what was being described could be daily interaction related stuff. So when we went to the store, we found this versus, dearest darling, I love you so much, I miss you so much. Both of those carry not necessarily equal weight, but both of those matter, I think, to the reader as much as the other. And the other quick note that I wrote, there's a place for, especially after the reading of the more current letters, there's a place for digital and handwritten letters, both. Digital allows us to communicate very easily, very quickly, which in some cases is very much needed. Obviously, there's also a place for the handwritten letter, which is what I'm going to talk about mostly here in a little bit, that allows for a little bit more emotion to be conveyed with it, just because the recipient can imagine on the other side somebody sitting down and writing that letter. So those are just a couple of things before I get into what I was actually going to talk about that were clearly noticeable to me coming out of the things that were read this morning. So my name is Clay Brizendine. Why am I here to talk to you guys? I wrote a very simple book, and quite frankly, I didn't even write the book years ago. So I had spent a long time, probably this would have been back 2004, 2005, when Savannah and Katrina, who are both here today, when they were born, spent a lot of time talking to other friends, like I've got 2 brothers, I have no idea what this girl thing is like, so help talk me through a little bit about what dad means to daughters, what daughters means, those kinds of things. And the stories that I got back from all of my female friends that I asked those of were fantastic. They described their dads as a little bit on a pedestal, almost, for the most part. And I was like, that sounds great. If that's what I'm signing up for and that's what I get, that's fantastic. So I decided at that point for other potential dads waiting, new dads. I thought it would be very helpful for them to be able to read some of the things that those particular individuals that I talked to would say about their father. And we had that put in letter form so that not only could I use them for the book, but they could also then deliver those to their fathers as well. And in most cases, that was able to happen. So put that book together years ago. I have since I talk about something that you see up here called Simplify to Amplify, which I'll tell you what that is in a second. But it's a very overarching framework about just being the best that you can be and focusing on priorities. The letter writing piece kind of flows right into that. So you'll hear me talk both the Simplify to Amplify piece, but as it relates to letter writing, hopefully, so that you're not bored out of your minds for 30 minutes listening to somebody talk about letter writing, because it is much, much bigger than just sitting down and writing a simple letter, okay? So, of course, with it being a little dark and it being the morning, I want everybody to close their eyes. So we're going to do a little something here where I'm going to ask you guys to do a little bit of visualization, and it's not anything, that's a big word that makes it sound much more difficult than it is. I'm just going to run you through two scenarios, and it's easier to do when you're not looking at me. It's easier to do when your eyes are closed. So I'll ask none of you to fall asleep in the process, and just for 2 minutes, humor me with this visualization. And I promise the person next to you is not going to look at you the entire time. So if you guys can go ahead and close your eyes, we're going to run through two scenarios. First scenario is you're at the end of your day, whether that's work, whether that's school, whether that's something else. You decide to stop at the store on the way home, but you're you don't want to stop at the store because you want to get home. And you want to get home because you're expecting something to be there from somebody that you care about. You get to pick who that care about is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a cousin, whether it's an uncle, whoever that happens to be. So you run through the store, you get that done very quickly. You get back in your car, you make your way home, you open the mailbox because you know the mail comes at about noon. You go to the mailbox, you sift through all your letters, and it's not there. So I'm going to pause that for a second. You guys can go ahead and open your eyes. Any one-word descriptors on how that feels? Disappointment? Maybe frustration? Sad? You're expecting something, you're anxious about it, you want it to be there, and it's not. All right, close your eyes again. We'll do this one more time. You go through a normal work day, maybe a little bit harder than what it was if it's in class at school, if it's something that your manager at work happens to do, if it's something else. A little bit harder day than you expected. You end up going straight home, stuck in traffic a little bit, but you make your way home. And you get there and you take a sigh of relief that you're finally home. And you walk out to your mailbox, you get your mail, and you're standing at the mailbox and you're sifting through a couple of pieces and you see a catalog, you see a bill, and then all of a sudden you see something that makes you stop, which is a letter that has a return address of somebody that you do care about that you did not expect to see. So open your eyes. What do you do at that point? What's next? Rip the letter open immediately. Like, what? You don't care if it's 20 degrees outside like it is right now or not, right? You rip that open because it's important. The unexpected piece certainly helps. But that in and of itself, hopefully you guys can take just those two little points, those data points on how you would feel with both of those to understand how important that letter could actually be. You know how you'd react in that situation. And that's the power, even in today's world, not in the 40s and the 50s during wartime, just coming home from work or school or something to that effect today, how important that is to how you feel. So I wanted to at least set the stage with that so we could get in a little bit in the emotional space of what letters can do, again, beyond just the act of sitting down and writing one or reading it itself. I'll transition to Simplify to Amplify and talk to you a little bit about how these are going to marry. So the idea that I talk about with Simplify is this: the more that you give focused time and attention to those things that are really important in your life, the healthier and happier you're going to be. This is not rocket science by any stretch. But a lot of times we forget to do this. A lot of times we get caught up in what's going on today. How can I do 20 things today and check off a list, rather than how can I do 6 or 7 things today that will really, really matter either to me or to somebody else. And that's typically what I talk about with folks. And I will run them through a whole series of exercises. Sometimes when I do this for 3 or 4 hours, I'll run them through a whole series of exercises to get them to a place where they can leave the class or whatever training we're doing and go, okay, I've got myself an action plan. I can walk out of here and go do something right now. So I'm going to take a very small snippet of that with you guys here today and do one of those. So I'd like for you, if you have logistically, some of you have phones, some of you have paper and pencils that Marion was nice enough to hand out earlier today. If you don't have either of those, I think we still have some paper and pencils around if you need them. But I'd like for you to take a minute or two, I'll probably give you about 2 minutes, to simply write down some of the most important things to you right now. Now that could be people, it could be the person sitting right next to you today, or that could be something else. If you're an avid reader, or if you like to cross-stitch and knit, or if you like to do something else, that can go on this list as well. But I want you just to take a moment and write down those things that are, whether they are things, whether they are roles that you play, or whether they're people in your life, to write down, take about 2 minutes and write down what those are. And then I want you to figure out what your top 5 of those would be. All right? So I will remain silent and give you guys about 2 minutes just to write some of those down. Sometimes I could take 10 minutes with this exercise, and sometimes I could take 60 seconds with this exercise, because those that are truly important to you in your life, they're probably going to come out first on your list anyway. So I like the top 5 piece because it helps center and ground us for the conversation that we'll have here. So does anybody want to share, most of the time, I'll give faith and family are usually the top 2 things that come out on these lists. Usually there's some other things that come out. But did anybody have anything other than faith, family at the top of their list for some of their top 5s? If you do, that's great. I'm sorry? Health. That's a very good one. Very good one. Yes, ma'am? Friends. Thank you. Yes, sir?
My identity. Where do I go from today?
That's a good one. We'd have a lot of conversation. We don't have enough time for that, but that's a good one. That is a good one. Yes, sir? I'm sorry? Yes, sir. Yes, very important. You don't need another 40-year-old to tell you how important education is, though. So I'm glad that's on your list already. Awesome. So you can see there's a varied number of things that end up on these lists that are important to us all. Now, you're not necessarily going to write letters to your health. You're not going to write letters to education. You can write letters to your school, though. And you can write letters to, if you have a family doctor that's helped you throughout things, you can write letters to them as well. So you can communicate in some of these areas that maybe seem like, how in the world would I actually do that? Write a letter to somebody like that. There are ways to kind of tweak these a little bit so that we can get to the point where you have 5 people that are in that top 5 that you'd like to write a letter to. The one thing that's different about today is that we have a top 6, right? So today, number 6 or inside of your top 5 becomes letter writing to those who have served us, who are currently serving us, or who have served us. Downstairs after this, there's a bunch of tables, pens, paper, cards. Kristen said there's a whole bunch of stuff downstairs where you guys can actually write today. And we'll talk about what little time it actually takes to do that, but how important that could actually be to those that are receiving and to you guys who are writing. What I want you to do on that top 5 that you guys have is write 1 or 2 things next to any of the people that are on there that would be easiest. Just 1 or 2 things for each of those that you could talk about in a letter to them. Not necessarily that you're going to write right now, but at least to get you thinking about what could I mention to this person, or if I have a topic like health, who's the person that maybe I would write that to? Who's somebody that helps me keep that in check? So I'll give you about 60 seconds just to look down your list and 1 or 2 things for each of those that you think would be applicable to the folks that you have in your top 5. For humoring me on this. This is, sometimes we get some eye rolls, like, oh my gosh, we have to do something. But this puts you in a much better place, even, I hope, than when you walked in here, to give you an idea of, hey, if I go out of here and I go downstairs and I'm going to write 1, 2, 3 notes to people, what could they actually be on? And whether it's email or handwritten, honestly, either one of those work, but in the context of today, we really want you to take a pen to paper and write it down, because it's a different experience, obviously, than typing it on a keyboard. Change is a funny thing. How many of you, I won't ask you to raise your hands, how many of you just think, do letter writing very well today versus probably not? My guess is most of us are in the probably not category. I'm talking about this stuff, and I'm probably not the best at it, right? So it takes a little bit of pushing, a little bit of motivation in order to get you to the point where you can write. One of the funny things just about change in general is it's not how we grow. We grow physically first, emotionally second, mentally third, and then the spiritual side of things kind of comes fourth. And the spiritual side of things is not necessarily faith. That's certainly a part of it. But it's also purpose. It's identity. It's what am I here to do? And when you decide that, when you land on something that's important to you in that top part, then change happens from top down. So once that purpose kind of gets set for whatever it gets set for, then all of a sudden your focus on the mental side comes into play. Your energy toward whatever that is positive. It's not negative. You're drawn toward it. You're not having to write it down the calendar and go, man, I really, really, really need to do that. If you have 10 minutes extra in the next hour, you spend that 10 minutes on that activity. And then your physical being obviously is engaged in that activity as well. So for those of us who don't necessarily write letters well today, and again, that would probably be a lot of us, if you make the decision to do it, all the other pieces kind of fall into place. But you have to have something at the top that pushes it to be a priority for you. And hopefully what you have on those lists, even taking 2 to 3 minutes, is enough of a little bit of a push to give you something that lands at the top of that list so you can then go and write a note to somebody. One of the beautiful things about letter writing just in general, I've got a clock up here and a dollar bill. From a clock piece, it does not take much time. So if I told you guys 15 minutes is 1% of your day, you probably think, 1%, that's not a lot. I can get a lot of stuff done in probably 15 minutes. And that's only 1% of my day. I've got 99 left. So what kind of note could you write to somebody? Could you write that note that is the quick, hey, I'm just thinking about you, whatever? Or could you write something else? What does 15 minutes get you? Especially now that you already have something down on paper. And you've already thought about it a little bit. What does 15 minutes get you? And the dollar? Stamp? I do not know what stamps cost. I have forever stamps now, right? So they can keep raising the rates and I've got stamps, but a stamp is still less than $1. And so for less than $1, you can really change the course of somebody's day. Just go right back to what it was like to feel when you got an unexpected letter in the mail. It didn't cost a lot of money for somebody to make you feel that way, and knowing that they probably on the other side are feeling the same way, okay? So all of the time, we talk about change is so difficult, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, right? Those are the two biggest things that come out when you talk to people about changing a behavior or doing something different. And both of those, in this case, are not that great, and the return is amazing. So it's one of the very few things that you can get a massive return out of very little effort, and both parties feel great about what's going on with it. Now, the interesting thing about change is the mind sometimes can play with us just a little bit. So here's an image. Which line is longer? Right. You guys know the trick, right? It's the same length. But you can stare at it for an hour and still go, I know it's the same, but do I? It kind of looks a little bit different, right? That's your mind playing a little bit of a trick on you. So our minds are not perfect when it comes to a lot of stuff. And they're not perfect in selling yourself on how important really is this? How important is this letter writing thing? 15 minutes? I don't have 15 minutes. Spare change, whatever. I don't want to go to the post office to get stamps, and so I'm just going to send an email. Right? Our mind can play a couple of tricks on us like that, and we need to take the things that are on your list in front of you to drive the purpose home to go, yeah, you know what? I've got something a little more important here than kind of the trick that the mind's playing here. Two things that are, I would say, more important today maybe than than in years past. I'm going to start with the social comparison piece. There's a lot of, and especially with teenage girls, I see this an awful lot, but just the social media space in general, where you're always comparing yourself to somebody else. And it's human nature to compare yourself to somebody else or something else. It just so happens that we now have multiple ways in the digital space to do that we never had before, and so it's a little bit worse. But we've all done it ever since we were born. One of the things that letter writing does is pull you out of that social comparison. It's a direct line. It's one person to one person. And it's just for you guys to share. Now, could you do that in person in a coffee shop somewhere? Sure. But you can do that in a way, a letter can do that in a way that not necessarily even a coffee shop conversation can. Because then the receiver of that letter can think, man, somebody actually sat down, took some time to think, wrote something down on my behalf to send to me. There is no comparison of like, you might for a moment go, I wonder if they did this for anybody else. Like, am I special? Right? That might be one of the first things that comes to mind. So that kind of comparison we're okay with. But in today's world, it pulls you out of that a little bit so that you're not constantly comparing, like, how many likes did my letter get? That's not a thing. That's not a thing at all. And then things versus experiences. I was lucky enough to take a class called The Science of Well-Being, and one of the things that we talked about was, with the mind playing tricks on us, the mind tells us that it's things that are really important. I need to go get things. I need a house here. I need a car here. I need something else there. Let's remove that for a moment and think about what experiences are like. So I didn't talk about when my girls and I, it took us 14 hours to get here. Yesterday, and that was not by design by any stretch. We were supposed to fly to Detroit, that flight got delayed, so we missed the connection. So then we had to fly to Minneapolis and then come over here to Buffalo and then drive 2 hours down last night. So we got in bed last night at 2:06 a.m. And I don't say that to be like, oh, sorry, what was you? Like, the experience that created for us for that day was something that we'll probably talk about forever. Like, hey, you remember the time when, we got delayed and it took us 14 hours to get to Buffalo when it probably could have driven there in 10, right? But that created an experience that was well beyond any possible quote-unquote thing that we could have. And the three of us will always have that to laugh about and talk about, and the gentle ribbing that we are giving my oldest daughter because we don't think she's talking loud enough, or the ribbing that we give my younger daughter on a host of other things. So there's stuff that's come out of this that is fantastic, that I wouldn't have been able to replace with anything else. All of you have examples of that, experiences that you have, and it doesn't have to be going on a vacation. It doesn't have to be traveling for 14 hours. But letter writing in and of itself is an experience. You sitting down to write it, the receiver getting it, and the emotions that come from that, that is an experience. And that will last a lot longer, even more so than an email. Will last a lot longer than you could possibly imagine. Just take 2 seconds and think about the last time you actually experienced getting a letter from someone. Some of you may not even remember because email has kind of taken over, but it is an experience unto itself. All letter writing has a purpose. It starts at the base. You want to convey some type of message, whatever that message happens to be. It could be a letter to yourself that you're simply going to file away. It could be something that you write to yourself that you burn. Like, no, I just needed to get this out from an emotional perspective. It could be to somebody else from a negative standpoint. You might have some things to say. There were probably 7 or 8 letters that I got for my book that were, Dad, here's some stuff that wasn't that great. And this is the experience that I had, and this is what I took away from it. That's as real as the positive experiences as well. Or it could be the positive, right? So you start with wanting to convey a message, and it builds up from there. You guys know this already. There's all kinds of purpose to writing a letter. So once you get it down on paper, the hope is with the people that you have on your list that you can convey whatever that message is to them in a very purposeful way that allows for that emotional connection to take hold. All right, so this is something that I usually end with any of my classes because we talk about change an awful lot. So here's a question to you guys, and you can just shout it out if you want to. All right, so you can read it up here. What would you take? If I give you $3 million right now today, or I give you a penny a day and doubled it each day for the course of a month, so a single month, 31 days, what would you end up taking? The $3 million or the penny? $3 million? Anyone else? Penny? All right, we'll just play it out. Okay, so we'll build it. First week, you're at 64 cents. $3 million looks really good right now. After the second week, you haven't even crossed $100, so $3 million still looks really good. The font starts to get smaller in this line, so $10,500 towards the end of that week feels pretty good, but it's still not $3 million. We are on day 29 at $2.6 million. So obviously you guys get the joke. 30 and 31, you got $10.7 million on the 31st day in the month rather than the 3 that you may have taken from the very beginning. Now, what does that mean? So we call this the compound effect, and this is actually, this example is taken from another author who does a really good job at talking about change. You never really know, when we talk about change, you never really know when something is really going to take hold. Because when you're changing a behavior or changing an action, it's going against everything that you're doing in the moment. And it's very difficult as humans to change our behaviors and our actions on a dime, extremely hard. Usually, when I'm asking people for change, it's a 45-day consecutive period of doing something different inside of whatever they want to do. In this case, really, it's meant to illustrate that over the course of the month, you don't know when it's going to take hold. So continue to push, continue to drive. If the purpose is strong enough, if it's letter writing or something else, then you'll have those like little bitty 10-minute increments where you're like, you know what, that purpose is strong enough. I'm going to go after this. I'm going to do something here, as opposed to, that 10 minutes can go to something else. However, this does not apply here at all. I talk about this. I've been talking about this stuff for 10 years. When it comes to letter writing, it doesn't apply at all. When you write it, you're different. When the receiver gets it, they're different, hopefully in a good way. And the purpose that you have behind that comes through immediately. Now, the only slowness that exists here might be the post office. That's it, and it doesn't cost a lot. So I mentioned this to say, in a world that is kind of like, I go back to the time and money thing, in a world that has a lot of has a lot of expediency built behind it, in this particular case, the letter writing, even though the delivery of it might be a little bit slower, the emotions that come with it can be that much greater. So I ask you to go back just for a moment. I'm not going to ask you to close your eyes again, but just go back again to the moment that you thought of when you got an unexpected letter in the mail. Okay, you have a chance on your pages. You have a chance now to go with kind of an action plan to go write a letter here to someone that you care about, here to a service member that you care about, here to somebody else that is important to you. And again, the reward on that is not going to be, oh, I might see this come Christmas time. The reward is, I can feel it now, and I want to go do that now, I want to go do that more. All right? So with that, I don't have anything else. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit out of this. Hopefully you are now like, man, I need to get downstairs and go write. Kristen's going to excuse you guys, and hopefully everybody goes downstairs and gets something off to somebody. I know there's other events that are later in the year as well, where you guys will have a chance to write letters to service members. I implore you to go write as much as you can. So thank you for your time, very much appreciated, and thank you to all of the wonderful people that I have come across over the last month or so at Heritage in Jackson. This speaks to your all's community really, really well. I told one person yesterday that our travel plans got a little messed up. And I probably had 10 to 15 people this morning say, hey, I heard you had a little bit of problem with the planes yesterday. And everybody has been wonderful. So thank you to you all for hosting us, for hosting my girls. It's been awesome. So thank you very much.
I worked at Heritage with Melissa Tressler, who put on this event and worked worked with the Dwyer Foundation and the Jackson Center and just all the amazing groups that come together. I just want to take a minute before I thank all of you and tell you a little bit about Heritage, and let Melissa say whatever she wants to as well, to just tell you my stories a little bit. My father-in-law is in the audience. Hi, Dad. And my mother-in-law, and he's a veteran. And did you guys write each other letters? Because I did not ask you ahead of time. And I believe my mother-in-law's mother actually sent him cookies, which he forever tells me about, and apparently I'm negligent because I can't figure out what kind they are to remake them. And she's no longer around to tell us. But they wrote each other letters, and he served our country in Vietnam. And currently, Heritage serves my father-in-law. And it's really important, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, but I also want to tell you that I agree with what Clay was talking about and all the letters that everyone wrote. My grandfather on my side, who lived to be 93, an old Italian gentleman who had 7 children, his family immigrated to our country, and who is kind of my hero. Even though I'm sure he had a lot of flaws, that's not what I think about when I think of him. He, when I was a little girl, used to write me notes. So he served in World War II, I believe. My husband, correct me if I'm wrong, and he was in the Navy. His stomach perforated when he was over there, so he got to come home a little bit earlier than he was planning and got married and had 7 beautiful children. Well, they're a little crazy too, but I'm sure he thought they were beautiful. But when I was a little girl, he worked for the post office and he used to write me letters. Now, this is where I would challenge you, along with what Clay said. They were not your typical letters. It was not a letter about what a great-granddaughter I was or what he was doing that week. It would simply be a line that said, "I noticed your shoelaces were dirty." And it would have a pair of shoelaces in it, "Love, Poppy," because that's what I called them. And just so you know, I still have those. When I was a kid, I would get those and think, he's a little nutty. I have no idea. Like, who cares about my shoelaces? You're an 8-year-old. And then I'd get one a year later. "I heard you say that word wrong. I thought you needed a dictionary." And like, really, there's kids in the audience here. Do any of you want a dictionary ever in your life? Like, I'm like, could he send me $100? Or he would, every time he saw me, hand me a little note, handwritten, 4 or 5 words, with a $2 bill or a silver coin or some stamps. He would buy me stamp collections. And I never realized how important those things were until I was older. And at about the age of 90, we would always take my kids there every year. And you knew in his house he had drawers of old, like, McDonald toys. You would just pull open the kitchen drawers and it would be filled with toys and the kids could dig through it and play with stuff. And I wrote him a letter and told him how important that was to all of us. And all of a sudden, a month later, I got a tissue box. So picture a tissue box that all the tissues, I'm assuming he had blown his nose with and used, had been completely emptied, and he had torn it open a little bit and shoved in some of the toys from his toy drawer from McDonald's. So now I'm talking, these were toys from when I was a kid, right? My kids are like, what are these things? Like, they used to play with them when they were little, and he duct taped it all up, threw a label on it at the age of 90, and we get this in the mail. I have no idea. The address was even a little bit wrong, how it got to us, and that is a 50-year memory for my family. We are opening this thing, and we're like, does he have dementia? What's happening? Why are we getting a tissue box with duct tape on it? And then my kids are like, it's the old toys. Like an old Furby and an old this and an old that, and half of them are broken and plastic, and they loved it, and we've kept all of that. We kept all of those pieces. So I would encourage you, whether you could only write 5 words or a whole piece of paper. There's a lot of people in this room who have wisdom, who could be writing to our youth and to other veterans and sharing their knowledge. There's a lot of youth in this room that I would not want to be a teenager right now that could just write a sticky note to encourage someone else, because I think things are far different than they were when we were little. But I want to just tell you that I'm so thankful for Heritage. Oh my goodness, my picture's up there. Thank you. So thankful for Heritage. We serve 2,400 seniors across our country. Many of those since 1886 have been veterans. Many of those can't afford the care and funding. Just to give you an example, it costs us $13,000 per month on average, not that you need to know that, to care for our veterans and our seniors, and we only receive $10,000 of that from the government in return. So we do it as a mission, as a nonprofit. We do not do it to make money. Our executive director often says, and I'm sure I'll say it wrong, for-profit, oh, well, Melissa, you are right on cue. A for-profit organization cares for our loved ones so they can make money. A not-for-profit organization like ours makes money so they can care for residents. There's no concern about what's left at the end. And it's important that we're caring and serving our elderly. It's important that we're learning the wisdom that they have. We are one of the largest employers, and the reason for that as a not-for-profit in our area is not because we're required to be. It's because we know to give them the level of care that they need, it makes the difference that we have the right amount of employees and people serving them. Every day I would just ask you to, if you have time, to not only write a letter, but to stop by our facilities. To walk down the hallway and read their bios that are on the wall and read that they've served our country. And they would love to tell you that story if you have 5 minutes to give. And it's often, we're often too busy. We're working through our to-do list and the myriad of things we have to do, but this is important. And it's important for our youth to know that, and I think it's important for our elders to share their knowledge with us. So I just thank you very much for coming today. I thank you for trying to think over the next month in this holiday season how you can serve those, even if it only takes a moment around you. And we appreciate it. Melissa, do you want to add anything else? Since you actually know what's on the slides. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you all. I don't want this to end. It's such a rich, it's rich in so many different ways, from the letters from Robert H. Jackson, from the Civil War and how the times have changed, to what Lisa had to share and how our youth are sending text messages. Now we can help give them the chance to write an endearing note to someone, even if it's just a quick hello. So at this time, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Clay. Thank you, Robert H. Jackson Center. Thank you, the Dwyer Group and the Blue Star Mothers, for putting this all together. And we want to invite all of you for refreshments downstairs in the banquet room. And with that, that gives you the opportunity to take what we have learned today and write your own note to someone you care about, but also there are a lot of soldiers that they might not have family that are sending them notes. So even if you sent a note saying, we're praying for you back here, we're thinking of you, the Blue Star Mothers have Christmas cards, stationery, and they also have, Cindy, they have a list of things that you can actually drop off for them, and they send care packages to our soldiers for Christmas. And you can visit their table downstairs to find more about that. And again, thank you. We hope you join us downstairs, and God bless.